Hello, everyone. GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I'm your host, Carly Riley, and I am here with a very special guest. Very special because he is my friend in addition to my guest today, the one and only Danny Greene. He is the general manager of MeebitsDAO. Danny, thank you so much for joining me today.
I am such a fan of your podcast, Carly. The fact that I actually get to be here with you talking about MeebitsDAO, this is a pleasure.
Well, I am a fan of your podcast as well. I was just complimenting you on how talented you are as both a podcast guest and a podcast host. So very excited to have you here. Why don't you plug your podcast real quick? Let's get that out here up front.
Yeah. When I got into Web3, I was really curious about how NFT projects in particular and general people in crypto were doing social good in this space, because there was so much of a backlash that, oh, crypto is being used for nefarious purposes and other things. Like, what's the other story? So I started a podcast called Crypto Changemakers. We've only done a few episodes. We're not putting them out every week or twice a week like you are. But I love to tell stories about projects that are doing something interesting. So, for example, we just looked at Freedom Squares, which is raising money for humanitarian relief for Ukrainian refugees, and a really cool NFT project around that. So check it out.
So I think we might close just talking a little bit about NFTs and social good. But the main reason we're here, of course, is MeebitsDAO and really Meebits, the ecosystem. I think you're doing some really interesting things. You commented earlier, like, I haven't had too many DAO projects on the podcast before. So I think this will be an opportunity to get into a lot in terms of how you're structuring a DAO that's not like an investment DAO, and what's working, what's not, what you've learned, and how to do what you're doing, because I think MeebitsDAO is doing a really awesome job. Okay, before we get into all of that, though, we do have to pause to hear a word from our wonderful sponsors.
It's increasingly obvious that everything will become tokenized, and NFT marketplaces needs robust financial reporting, performance analysis, and the peace of mind that they are compliance ready. GILDED's NFT Ops is a one-stop financial reporting solution for growing NFT platforms. GILDED has developed marketplace-specific modules to track the financial performance of NFT creators, including revenue tracking, collection metrics, royalty payments, and revenue share. Customers of NFT Ops gain full access to accounting tools and powerful APIs for custom integrations that simplify operations, streamline reporting, and produce tax-ready data. So no wonder why so many top brands like CoinMarketCap, Gitcoin, Nifty's, and POAP trust GILDED to automate complex reporting workflows. Visit gilded.finance/bankless to learn more. If you're starting on your NFT journey, you need MetaMask. This is your tool to unlock the world of DeFi and NFTs without giving up custody over your private keys. MetaMask is both a secure in-browser wallet and also a secure bridge for your hardware wallet so that you can connect to any Web3-enabled website. You can now trade tokens with any DEX or aggregator. MetaMask Swap gathers real-time pricing information across the DeFi exchange ecosystem, allowing you to select your best price while getting all of the MetaMask benefits of self-custody, lower gas costs, and increased transaction success rates. MetaMask also has a fantastic mobile wallet, which I use while I'm out and about. And I use it to collect POAPs, NFTs, and use it for all my DeFi things while I'm away from home. If you haven't downloaded MetaMask, you gotta try it out. Download MetaMask for desktop and mobile at metamask.io, or load up your Ledger, Trezor, Keystone, or Lattice hardware wallets so that they too can get into Web3.
Okay, we're back. Danny, you joined as general manager of MeebitsDAO when? And it's funny I have to ask that because I was like someone involved in hiring you, because I've been involved with MeebitsDAO in the past. I'm not particularly involved now, so there's no conflict of interest here as far as I'm concerned. But when did you join as general manager?
I started at the beginning of January and then was officially voted in by the DAO to become the general manager in the middle of February. Okay.
And we had started talking with you about joining and coming on board last year, even in like kind of late 2021. So all of that predates the Yuga Labs acquisition. This was when Larva Labs was still the owner of the Meebits IP. In March, big announcement, Yuga Labs bought out both CryptoPunks and then, of course, Meebits. Let's just start there. What has changed? How have you seen the ecosystem around Meebits, and then how has the DAO itself changed since the Yuga Labs acquisition?
Well, that week was so exciting. First of all, it was totally unexpected. And the price of Meebits started to move where there was still rumors. And I was like, oh, this is BS. Like, I didn't believe it at all. I was like, this is too good to be true. Like, you know, Coke doesn't buy Pepsi. Like, it just doesn't work that way, right? But, you know, I think you had predicted that there were going to be some acquisitions coming in the space. And so yeah, when it happened, it was super exciting, and it just brought so much attention to Meebits. And necessary attention, right? This is a collection that is absolutely incredible. It's been about for just over a year. It launched actually the same week as Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is just crazy. A lot of people, looking at Meebits coming out from Larva Labs, from the CryptoPunks, as a second generation from CryptoPunks, thought, oh, it's a 3D voxel character. This is going to be the collection that really takes off. And so I've talked to so many people who are like, oh yeah, I went all in on Meebits and missed out on Bored Ape Yacht Club because they were the same week. So there's this history that already kind of goes together between these two collections all the way from the beginning. And when the news finally came out that, yes, this is true, that Yuga Labs is buying CryptoPunks and Meebits, I mean, it was so exciting for Meebit holders. And then they took the extra step by saying, and we're giving commercial rights to all Meebit holders. And that really changed a lot. It changed what was possible. And specifically at the DAO, we were looking to build all these extra kind of derivative type projects and never knew if it was totally going to be kosher based on the rules for the way that Larva Labs had set out. And so we felt like, now the floodgates are open, the doors are open for us to be able to really move and create some really cool stuff, hopefully some stuff that I'll be talking about later in the podcast.
It seems like CryptoPunk holders had a very mixed reaction to Yuga buying them out, and Meebit holders were like, hell yeah, attention on our project, long last. Like, is that how you would describe it as well?
Yeah, and ironically, in my conversations with Yuga Labs, they've kind of echoed a little bit of the same sentiment of like, we're going to be kind of hands off on CryptoPunks. Like the CryptoPunk holders, they know what they want, but we're interested in building utility for Meebits because we know anything that we do, Meebit holders are going to get excited about. And so, yeah, I would say that everybody in the Meebits community was excited about this acquisition.
Do you think there's been a shift at all in who holds Meebits? Like it feels like, and again, would love for you to correct this if you think something differently, but before the acquisition, and maybe this is still the case, it was a lot of these OGs, as you're describing, people who were in the space early enough to maybe have CryptoPunks. They got those Meebits. They were in the space and tracking it early enough to even have a position on a Bored Ape versus a Meebit. And but they're a little bit quieter. Like, the Punks holders aren't as crazy as the Bored Ape holders, and that was really true, for them, the Meebit holders as well. Was that the case? Has that changed at all? How would you describe the tenor or the tone of the community?
Yeah. So I guess a little bit of history, right? CryptoPunks is essentially the first PFP NFT, right? And so the owners of CryptoPunks, they either, have been here from 2017, the very beginning, they've seen kind of the ups and downs, they've seen this space develop, or they came in with a lot of crypto later on and bought in, right? So there's already this kind of history. And then the Meebits, there are 20,000 Meebits. The first 10,000 went directly to CryptoPunk holders. So, a lot of CryptoPunk holders are Meebit holders as well, but they maybe are more passionate about their CryptoPunk than they are about the Meebit that they hold. And so the thing that I've been most excited about is the increase in the number of holders of Meebits. And that's what we've seen go up dramatically since the acquisition by Yuga Labs. So we now have over 6,500 Meebit holders. And to me, that's a much more important number to follow than even the floor price right now, because that means that there are over 6,500 people who are out there who are excited about Meebits, who own Meebits. And the increase of that number is something I get really excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it speaks to that there was a bit of a shift, right? That you suddenly, it wasn't just, and again, I may be oversimplifying it, but just those sort of OGs who were a little bit maybe hands off themselves because they're the CryptoPunk holders who sort of have the this is a collectible mindset to some extent. Okay, let's talk about MeebitsDAO and its, so to speak, reason to be. I think people, maybe not in the space, though I think maybe some people who are in the space have a harder time wrapping their heads around DAOs that are like non-investment DAOs. The non-investment DAO the investment DAO seems very clear cut. Okay, you want to go buy the Constitution, you're pooling your money. You want to go buy CryptoPunk, you're pooling your money, whatever, right? Your Flamingo DAO. This is a little bit funkier. So tell me, what was the galvanizing force behind creating MeebitsDAO?
Yeah. We call this more.
We got to call out Kai Turner, of course.
Of course, we got to call out Kai. I was going to bring up Kai. So we call this more of a social DAO or a community DAO, as opposed to investment DAO or a protocol DAO. the purpose of the DAO actually, goes back to the launch of the collection. So RARIBLE Labs put out this 3D voxel character with the promise and the idea that this could be your avatar for the immersive metaverse. Okay. And again, this is in May of 2021, before Facebook changed their name to Meta, like before really like the metaverse became the talk of the town. And that was like a big vision. But the question is like, well, how do you get there, right? How do you actually make this the avatar of the metaverse? And so a group of Meebit holders came together, led by Kai Turner, to say, let's form a DAO of Meebit holders to help solve this problem, to actually help make these avatars metaverse ready, and really to create the open metaverse, right? So the mission of the Meebits DAO is not about just creating utility for Meebits. It's about building and fostering the open metaverse and using Meebits as a tool for doing so, right? And so there's this kind of, on the one hand, I want to benefit Meebit holders because, more attention to the actual collection, it benefits us all. But there's a much bigger vision that we're fighting for here. And that is about decentralization. It's about the open metaverse. It's about interoperability. And that's what I go to sleep and wake up thinking about every single day.
I want to get deep into the tactics there and what it'll really take for this future to come to fruition. But I want to just pause on, I think, a point you made sort of in passing, which is about these were 3D voxel characters. Voxel, right? That's the right term for the style?
A voxel is like a cube as compared to a pixel, which is like in a 2D space.
Got it. Voxel being 3D, basically, is the important piece. And so these came out in May of last year?
May 3rd, 2021.
It's only been a year.
We just celebrated our birthday. I know.
This space is so strange.
It's so quick.
Oh God, I can't believe it's only been around for a year.
NFT.NYC happened 6 months ago. And we're doing it again in a few weeks. Like, it's just mind-blowing. It should actually happen twice a year because a year in NFT space is actually 2 years.
No, I know. It's 100%. It's wild. Okay, so they launched these voxels in these 3D characters in May of last year. We haven't really seen too many others that have come out like this. What is the process of retrofitting non-voxel characters into voxel characters? And then talk a little bit about I don't know if you know the answer to that, but then talk about how Meebits DAO has been pushing forward on this voxel model, because I think that's a big piece of what you guys are doing with the API and other things.
Yeah. I think that the most popular voxel NFT PFP collection to come out in recent memory, at least for me, and someone's going to tell me that I'm wrong, but is the Snoop Dogg, voxel PFP, right? And that was designed specifically for Sandbox. So it was designed with one specific metaverse in mind, versus the Meebits, which was, here's a 3D voxel character that can be your avatar for the open metaverse, meaning every single metaverse experience we want to be exploring and be excited about. And so
I feel like CyberKongs, they have a voxel character, right?
Yeah,
they're another big one.
Yeah, of course. And they've been doing some amazing stuff. And there's a bunch of other interesting 3D projects as well that have kind of explored. And we, Fluff, I want to mention as well, right? They created 3D characters that could be used in Metaverse. And, we talk about the meta gang. What are those NFT PFP collections that are really thinking about creating Metaverse utility? And, in some ways, we're trying to, lead the pack in creating all different ways in which you can use a Meebit.
Yeah, I think this is an important piece to realize, because I think we have this broad conception of NFTs and they're the characters for the metaverse, and these lines can get very blurred and it can just become this kind of mishigosh of NFTs and the metaverse and pictures and whatever. But it's actually not that simple, your picture that you're putting as your Twitter profile picture can't just become your dude running around any metaverse. There are a number of steps there that need to be put in place and sort of considered. And I know MeebitsDAO has worked a bit with, at the time it was RARIBLE Labs, to try and further that vision. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those steps are so people really do understand how much work goes into something like this?
Yeah, and this is going to get slightly technical, but I think it's really important as we understand kind of what does it mean to kind of become metaverse ready, which is, we started with a voxel character, and that's how these were designed. But the first thing that the Meebits DAO did was to create different file formats for that character. So we created a VRM file, which can be used in Webaverse, for example, a GLB file, an FBX file, even OBJ files, like different files that can be used in different ways. Because when we think about the metaverse, it actually means a lot of different things, right? I break up the metaverse actually into like three simple categories, right? There's virtual reality, right? Put on a headset and be fully immersed. That's kind of the farthest off metaverse right now. There's virtual worlds, which we're all very familiar with, right? Fortnite is an example of a virtual world. World of Warcraft is an example of a virtual world. These are obviously centralized virtual worlds, but then you have Sandbox or Decentraland, which are decentralized virtual worlds. And then the third category is augmented reality, right? Augmented reality is, the Pokemon Go, right? Where you kind of are looking at your phone and you're interacting with the physical world and the virtual digital world simultaneously. When we think of the metaverse, we're actually thinking about all three of these different concepts and how they actually interact together, either distinctly or all together. And the idea is like, okay, well, how can we make Meebits actually a part of all aspects of the metaverse? And how complicated is this for an NFT avatar character to exist in all these different platforms at the same time? So it started with just file formats, right? Let's take these 20,000 characters and create various different file formats. And then the second step was to create an API that we actually could use, that developers could use to give access to Meebit owners so that they could then play use their avatar in that virtual world or in that game. And so we now have a bunch of different examples of other metaverse experiences that are using our API, and then Meebits owners can, use their MetaMask wallet, sign in, and then use their Meebit in that virtual world or game.
So right now, what are Meebits compatible with from what we would think of as like, the typical metaverse, Sandbox, Decentraland, Somni, like whatever, all these different ones. What are the where can I play with my Meebit?
Yeah, you want me to give the list of 30 different metaverse experiences that we're participating in?
Well, just that, rattle it off. The rest of the podcast.
I can
go. That's great. But even that's helpful. So there's 30 metaverses right now where Meebits are compatible. Are there any?
Yeah, and I'll tell you
where they're not, or it's like you've accomplished this. It's metaverse ready.
So there's two different things, right? So there's sometimes there's also another step that's not just a file format, but it's about rigging the skeleton of the avatar character specifically for that metaverse, right? And this is part of the challenge right now. We're so early in this space that there's not clear standards for how to build an avatar, right? Like every single metaverse experience is kind of doing it slightly differently. So the skeleton structure and rigging of Sandbox is actually totally different than Webaverse or Decentraland or anything like that. So what we're trying to do is not only, so an individual Meebit owner who has the technical skills can, for example, rig their Meebit for Sandbox. But what we want to do is work with Sandbox and with Yuga Labs to actually rig them so that any Meebit owner can immediately just enter and use their Meebit in Sandbox, for example. But there's a bunch of others that are currently you can participate in. So we just did like a mini land sale with a metaverse called Blocks. And it's like a community-based metaverse where we have just 64 plots of land, and this is kind of Meebits town, right? Like this is all Meebits, and you can walk around with your Meebit in this town. You can jump and you can play, and it's also kind of a way to communicate with each other. And so that's one example of where we're playing.
I feel like there's a little bit of a debate going on right now about whether or not metaverses, in the sense of like, hey, we're launching a metaverse, or where this ultimately plays out, or if it's more games that people actually want to play that evolve into metaverses where people are hanging out. are you targeting games as well to have Meebit characters in games? How are you thinking about that balance between games versus, hey, we're a metaverse?
Yeah. So the Meebits DAOs mission, right, is to foster the open metaverse and to be ubiquitous, right? Meebits everywhere, right? And so on some level, I want to partner with everybody who is building a game or some other sort of experience and say, hey, how can Meebits be a part of it? And then allow Meebit owners and the community at large to kind of to decide what kind of rises to the top, right? And is the so I don't personally like take a perspective, oh, it's got to be a game, it's got to be that, right? I want it to be a little bit of everything because there's space in the open metaverse, there's space for all of it, right? So other side, right? Coming out of Yuga Labs, right? This incredible role-playing MMO that's going to be coming out. Meebits are going to be rigged for that from the beginning, right? And so we are very excited to be part of that. And we know that that's going to be kind of more game-oriented.
Has Yuga Labs officially announced that now? I feel like they popped on the speculation that Meebits was, but no, that's always been a part of the
that's definite. So
okay.
It's definite. I mean, what they said from the very beginning is that that apes, mutants, and CryptoPunks are all being kind of designed for other side. And since Meebits are kind of already a voxel character, they have to specifically rig it, right? So it's a little different than they're not creating something from scratch like they are with the other collections. They're rigging kind of the existing models.
Okay, there was people were sad that Cool Cats, there was something about, I guess, Cool Cats not being kind of mentioned in the first slew of like characters that were going to be rigged for other side, even though it was in the teaser video. And poor Cool Cats, I feel like it's just the hits just keep on coming for them. Do you feel like you're gaining a perspective at this point, or is it still way too early on which model of metaverse, let's say, is best? Like you're talking about all these different kinds of rigging. Sandbox is different from Decentraland. Are you like, this one's clearly better, let's go with this one, y'all? Or it's too early to really know?
There isn't a best. I don't believe in the idea of best. Like I believe in the idea of the open metaverse, right? Where it's all about fostering creativity, and that there's going to be so many different directions, right? So I've already talked about augmented reality versus virtual worlds versus virtual reality versus virtual worlds, right? Let's go even like deeper into this, right? One of my favorite metaverse experiences is World Wide Web 3 or web game, right? Which is both kind of a metaverse land, and they're also creating games out of it. This is a 2D metaverse, right? It's a pixel based. Now, this is interesting because Meebits is a 3D voxel character. Does that mean that we are going to be excluded from the 2D kind of retro metaverse? No. What Meebits DAO has done is we passed a proposal to recreate the entire collection as 2D pixel characters so that we can then play in the 2D pixel metaverse, right? And that's going to be a super fun game. We're also we've partnered with Jadu, which is another one of my favorite projects in the space, and should absolutely be on the Overpriced JPEG podcast at some point.
I've talked to the Jadu team. They're great. Why don't you tell folks what Jadu is?
Yeah, so Jadu, they're building the Mirrorverse, they call it, which is all about augmented reality, right? So they launched initially with jetpacks, and then they launched hoverboards. And from the beginning, you were able to ride use the jetpack with your Meebit and take off, right, with your Meebit, with your jetpack, or ride your hoverboard with your Meebit. And where were you doing this? Like in augmented reality. So you could literally take a picture or take a video of the street and have your Meebit on a hoverboard just going across the street, right? That's another example, right? And so this is the metaverse as well, right? It's the digital world in which we're being created, which can interact with our physical world or be entirely immersive itself. And my vision is that Meebits is a part of all of it, and there is no best. It's just about different experiences that are going to be created, and how can we be a part of it?
I love all the videos of Meebits dancing. There's so many good Meebit dancing videos, if folks haven't seen it, where people have put their Meebits on their kitchen counter and they'll do these wild dances. And
let me tell you about another dance one that another partnership that we have around dancing, which is just so much fun, which is a group called MetaMoves. And they've created a whole different type of NFT, which is movement-based NFTs, meaning that you actually own a set of movements as opposed to kind of a character. And so then we were able to use the FBX files, which is one of the files that we created for all the Meebits, and map it to these motion capture movements that they recorded in their studios. And that makes these Meebits look like they're dancing. You could do like the Thriller dance. You can do like all these different crazy dances, and have your avatar's characters actually map to those movements. It's so cool. And again,
that's wild.
Yeah.
Well, what struck me about that is like almost this modular way, like how modular is this future going to be? And I think there's downsides to this too, but you're describing like you can buy a movement. You have to pay money to buy one of these movements to get your Meebit to do it. I've heard of NFTs that are sound NFTs or voice NFTs, right? So you could buy an NFT, and there's lots of weird complications with that of like if you're a grown man and you're using the voice of a young girl, like, there's really dark implications, but let's put those kinds of dark implications aside and think about like the modular creation of a 3D avatar where you're buying the skin or the look of the character in one place, and then you're buying the movements it can do in another place, and you're buying the voice and the sounds it makes. And like, that's just fascinating to think about. A whole unlock that I hadn't really put together.
Yeah. There's again, we're at such the early days of what's going to be created here.
So Meebits DAO is about promoting the open metaverse, creating the open metaverse. We're going to talk about governance structure because I think it's got a very unique governance structure and good for people to learn from, anybody who's thinking about DAOs in a little bit. But I want to stay on this open metaverse topic and ask, what do you think are the biggest threats to the open metaverse? Is it Meta? What will keep this from going the way y'all hope it goes?
Yeah. Punk6529 is kind of one of the thought leaders in this space that I follow, and is somebody that everybody should read his Twitter feed or her Twitter feed, their Twitter feed, because I think he really makes... He really like crystallized this for me, that we're at a moment in time right now in which it's a fight for decentralization, right? That there are big tech, big data, big government that wants to exert some level of control, and this is institutional powers that want to retain some level of institutional powers, and that what blockchain provides for us, what it represents, is an opportunity for individualized power, that you can actually own your digital currency, you can own your digital assets, you can own your NFTs, and that this is a fight for decentralization. So, what is the biggest threat to this is siloed power that is not interoperable, and that doesn't allow us to kind of move around in this open metaverse, right? And so that's why I always talk about the open metaverse, because I do think that it is something that we are fighting for, and it represents some fight for freedom. I'm
optimistic, and I would say I vacillate between optimism and pessimism, depending on the week or the month. But I'm optimistic because the economics are there for the open metaverse, in the sense that like what consumers will want, I believe, are assets that they can sell on marketplaces regardless of where they are or what platform they're on. And that once people see that and understand that, that's obviously what people will be drawn to, and they will shirk platforms that don't allow them that kind of mobility and that kind of freedom, and that it'll be just a case where the consumer will is too strong because the economic case for the consumer is too strong. Do you agree, or is that naive and we're fighting an uphill battle?
I think that people want convenience, right? It's why I'll pay for a streaming service rather than like buy individual songs, or Netflix is popular, right? People, there might be easier ways. Even if you just think about like, downloading, like pirating music or something like that, like, oh, it's just much easier to pay $10 a month and get Spotify, and I don't have to actually go through the process, right? And so I think that it requires us to build, right, really good products in a decentralized manner, because the institutions have tons of money and tons of talent and tons of reach, and they're going to be building stuff that is siloed in nature, right? And so the people who are builders in Web3, who really do believe in this idea of interoperability and decentralization, I think it's just so important that you continue to retain that that idea in your building philosophy.
Mm-hmm. NFTs are a lot about social signaling and identity. Everything's about social signaling. The clothes we wear, all the things we do, and obviously there's a lot that gets made about digital identity. And what do you think? I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Like, do you think about what it should say about someone if they own a Meebit or use their Meebit as their avatar in the metaverse? Does the community express opinions about this? Like, how deep in terms of what am I signaling when I own a metaverse have y'all gotten?
Yeah, I love it. I love that question because it really gets to the heart of what I think is the meaning and purpose of the Meebit, right? Punk 6529 talks about the power of memes, right? And that the meme is the message. He talked about the American flag and Nike symbol, for example, as memes. So not just memes in the sense of like, cat videos on the internet, but memes in terms of like, what are those cultural iconic symbols that carry meaning and that can motivate action and that actually have a belief system tied to them, right? That's the idea of what actually a meme is and why JPEGs on the blockchain, NFTs, are so powerful, because there's actually an emotional connection that can come from this digital asset that you can now own, right? Not only because you're a part of a community, if you're part of an NFT collection, but because of the message itself that is conveyed from that piece of artwork or from that collection. So what is the message of the Meebit? To me, it's everything that we're talking about. It's the idea of the open metaverse. It's the idea of decentralization. It's the idea that there isn't one winner, right? And also, the collection itself is so representative of this. It's a collection that celebrates diversity. It's gender diverse. It's racially diverse, right? Like, most NFT collections aren't thinking in that way. So when I'm thinking about building the open metaverse, I'm not just thinking about what are the technological challenges that we're trying to solve. It's also a value-based question. Like, what do we want the open metaverse to be? Who do we want to be included within it? How do we want to be represented? And I know males who own Meebits who use a female Meebit as their avatar, right? Like, because in the metaverse, you can choose what identity you want to represent. And this as a collection, Meebits as a collection, actually allows you to make that choice in a very meaningful way and to say something very powerful about believing in the creation of an open metaverse.
You say all this about Meebits. You get me pumped about Meebits. They were a very early collection. They were the earliest, as far as I know, in terms of thinking about metaverse compatibility and being 3D. Are Meebits undervalued?
I mean, of course, yes. I mean, if I'm allowed to say, this is not financial advice, but of course, I think that Meebits are undervalued, because I think that there's so much to this collection. There's so much to this collection. I mean, in terms of metaverse utility that we're building every single day, and there's even more to talk about on that front. But let's take all of that aside, which to me is actually the most important thing, right? Like, you can actually use this avatar, you can use this NFT in the metaverse, right? So many NFTs, I buy it not to use it, I buy it just to be part of a community or something. No, this is actually a usable asset, right? That you can actually play with and have fun with, right? But taking all of that aside, I think that Meebits are one of the most incredible artistic achievements. And again, I'm so glad that we are now part of the Yuga family, but I have so much respect to John and Matt from Larva Labs, who are just mad geniuses who created this collection. I mean, it is so detailed. And I've been going through the collection for the last 5 months, with a fine-tooth comb, and I find these small little details that are just so thoughtful. I mean, for example, what we're doing right now, actually, is launching a derivative collection for Meebit holders called MeeKicks. And it's just the shoes that the Meebits wear. And we're going to launch that as an entirely separate collection because I think the shoes in and of themselves are worthy of focused attention. There's over 80 different pairs of shoes in the collection. Every single Meebit owner is going to be able to free claim their MeeKicks put out by the Meebits DAO. And it's a way for us just to celebrate the collection and the artistic achievement of John and Matt from RARIBLE Labs.
So you have me pulling up Meebits now because I'm embarrassed to say I have a Meebit. And I can't picture what I know. I could describe the pants my Meebit wears, but like, I don't know. Do Meebits have, you're saying they have shoes right now? And these MeeKicks. Oh yeah. Okay. So it has a pair of shoes. Wow. It is cute shoes.
Wait, what kind of shoes? Let's get it. What is the type and color?
I can't, I wish I could share y'all. We record in Riverside and I think it's a pain if I like share randomly in the middle of a conversation. So I apologize if you're on YouTube, but you can go check these out. They are blue, like kind of a light blue with like a gray base and then a white, like a white stripe down the middle. I love the blue.
Cool.
So, okay. So, but break this down for us because these are actually, this podcast will be launching June 8th. And I believe June 9th is when MeeKicks drop. Do I have this right? So tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the day it drops, it will be tomorrow that MeeKicks are dropping. This is so cool. So,
and no matter when you listen to this, even if it's like 3 months from now or 6 months from now or 25 years from now, right? Like there's no end date to the
claim
MeeKicks collection, right? It is a free claim for forever and ever and ever. Once the MeeKick gets claimed for that Meebit, it's going to be claimed, right? So it'll already have been claimed.
Secondary.
But yeah, exactly.
Are these Ethereum based? Will these be like on OpenSea?
Yeah,
they have to be, I guess, because Meebits are. So tell me. So can you like?
No,
are we at a place at this point where I could like put my MeeKicks on my Meebit in a metaverse land?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
There's going to be obviously a video file that you'll see the representation of the shoes from your Meebit, right? But then we're also going to be able to provide you with a Vox file, an FBX file, and a GLB file for each for your shoes, and you'll be able then to go to Webaverse, for example, which is a really incredible, kind of totally underappreciated open source metaverse that's being created now.
It's worth noting that their World Wide Web, which I think I heard you say in another interview, was like, okay, a little bit of hubris there to name to name your project that, but the founders are WEBB, so it's like the web of like
two different projects.
Dope. This is going great. This is going really well. Yeah, love that for me. Okay, proceed. Webaverse.
Let's break this down.
So undervalued. I don't even know
funny.
what it. So underappreciated. I don't even really know it. Love this.
I saw a meme that was like, either take the word like meta or take the word verse and you just like switch it out and that's what you'll call your metaverse word.
Yeah, it's like what's your stripper name? It's like take the you can like. Okay, well tell us about Webaverse.
So,
man, there's so many follow-up questions that I have here.
The World Wide Web or web game Web3, that is the 2D
pixel game.
Web pixel based, that we're talking about. This is called Webaverse, which is an open source metaverse. Totally building in public, open source. They're building it in a way that whatever game that you choose to build upon it can be basically anything. It could be 2D, it could be 3D, it can be a first-person shooter, it can be kind of from a 3D perspective, right? It's giving you all of these various different tools. I really love this project, not because it's the prettiest, but because it is based on this idea of open source, open metaverse. Let's create standards so we can all build together, right? And so, for example, in Webaverse, you'll be able to take your MeeKicks and put it on your Meebit, right? You can actually buy a different pair of Meebits, right? So you can have you can wear different shoes on your Meebit in that metaverse.
So this is my question. So the MeeKicks, the shoes that you're dropping. So for me, I'm not getting the same pair of sneakers that my character currently wears, or am I?
You will. Yes.
Okay.
It's a free claim for all Meebit holders to claim the shoes that their Meebit wears, right? So
But-
you will
but
have a
it's already
second
wearing
NFT
it.
that is
So
yes,
is
and now
this
you'll have a second
specifically
NFT.
so that I can put them on in various metaverses, or it's so I could sell it and
You won't
swap
need
it
to.
and buy? I could buy
Yeah.
another pair. Okay, so I could go out and buy a different pair of sneakers
Right.
for my my character, and now my sneakers could be available to other Meebit characters. Okay, I'm tracking.
Yes.
I'm tracking now.
In stage 1. That's what stage 1 is.
Is stage 1 the stage we're about to enter? Stage 1 is, or are we about to enter stage 0?
You can put no, this is stage 1 is releasing the MeeKicks. Stage 2 is releasing Meepets, and you'll be able to put the shoes on your Meepet, and then your Meebit and your Meepet can have the same shoes.
Oh my gosh, adorable. So like mommy daughter outfit day or whatever.
Yeah.
What is the
Right.
timeline here?
So MeeKicks is launching on June 9th
Yes.
and is going to be available
Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Meepets is our next big development project that I'm going to be suggesting to the DAO to fund, and then we'll work on it for the next 4 to 6 months and release it hopefully before the end of the year.
RARIBLE is the NFT platform that's leading the charge into the multi-chain universe ahead of us. Available on Flow, Tezos, Polygon, and of course Ethereum, RARIBLE is the perfect place for NFT newcomers, profile picture collectors, and experienced NFT traders. RARIBLE has a variety of NFT features that set it apart from other NFT marketplaces. They have a native messaging function allowing you to DM your friends or haggle with sellers. They also have a mobile app on iOS and Android with a built-in NFT portfolio tracker tool, so you can easily check the value of your digital art portfolio. RARIBLE is built on the RARIBLE protocol, a multi-purpose, open source, and community-governed NFT protocol that helps build products and services across the NFT ecosystem, including white label marketplaces tailored to specific NFT communities. So go to rarible.com and start discovering and trading NFTs, putting in floor bids to join PFP communities, and DM with some brand new internet friends. Living a bankless life requires taking control over your own private keys. And that's why so many in the Bankless Nation already have their Ledger hardware wallet. And brand new to the Ledger lineup of hardware wallets is the Ledger Nano S Plus, a huge upgrade to the world's most popular hardware wallet. With more memory and a larger screen, the Nano S Plus makes it easy to navigate and verify your transactions. And the paired Ledger Live desktop app gives you increased transparency as to what is about to happen with your NFT. What you see is what you sign. The Nano S Plus gives you the smoothest possible user experience while you're doing all of your crypto things. So go to the Ledger website to check out the features of the new Ledger Nano S Plus and join the waitlist to get yours. And don't forget about the Crypto Life card, also powered by Ledger. The CL card is a crypto debit card that hooks right into the Ledger Live app, right next to all the DeFi apps and services that you're already used to doing, like swapping tokens and staking. So if you don't have a Ledger hardware wallet, go to ledger.com, grab a Ledger, and take control over your crypto.
Deciding which question I want to ask you next, if I want to go down one rabbit hole or another. Let's talk about governance structure. You say you're going to propose this to the DAO and hopefully get the financing for it. Maybe break down for folks how governance in Meebits DAO works, and it's unique and a little bit complicated. Would you say?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the idea that we have a DAO that's building utility for an NFT collection that we don't actually control is innovative and interesting unto itself, right?
Sure.
Right? So
I foresee like
we
Goblin Town. I guess Goblin Town is CCO, so it's even more
Right.
permissive. But I'm like,
anybody can build on top of
I'm
that.
like they better get themselves a good DAO to drive that project forward. I don't know how it's going to sustain this like 6 ETH price that it's rocking right now. Anyhow, side note, continue.
I don't think it will, but that's my own personal opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. Right? Like, I'm much more interested in what are those NFTs that are going to have true utility for the future, right? Those are the ones that I'm interested in investing in. But memes are fun too, right? So the DAO structure, we have a 2-tiered membership structure. We have DAO founders that each contributed 1 ETH to the treasury. There's a cap on 200 founders. Currently, we have 180, and so there's still space for a few new founders to come in. Then we have general members who each minted a membership token for 0.05 ETH. We have 3,500 members in the DAO and the possibility for 10,000. So if you want to join the DAO, we would love to have you be a part of it, and you can still mint a membership token. That creates our treasury. And so that's what funds my salary and any of the projects that we invest in that benefit all Meebit holders for the most part. So the way that the proposals work is founders can suggest or propose a proposal. I often do so with the steering committee, which is a group of 10 people made up of both founders and general members. We decide on what projects we want to pursue, put it up for a vote, and all of the founders have the ability to vote. General members don't actually vote. What they do is they choose a founder as their delegate. And every single month, this gets a little complicated, but every single month, the general members can claim an MVOX governance token and then delegate it to a founder to increase that founder's voting power. So basically, we have this representative system. The founders, which is no more than 200 people, are the ones who get to vote, and all general members get to choose a founder as their representative.
So my understanding of the initial ethos of this structure, which again was our good friend Kai Turner, who's brilliant and so thoughtful when he pursues things, was, okay, we need to garner an initial treasury, and we want folks who will pay an ETH to build up this treasury and to be our founders, and we need them to have incentive for that and a certain amount of power and prestige for putting up that initial capital. But we also don't want this to be something where like they have too much power or all of the power. And that's where then you have, okay, if you come in as a general member, you get to really tilt the scales in terms of the more active founders then, in theory, should be rewarded and gain more power, the ones who are actually really involved, actually really participating. It's not just about the capital they put up initially, because they'll have more tokens, MVOX staked to them, and they'll accrue more power in the system. Do I have that right?
Yeah. I think that this is all an experiment, right? Like all DAOs are. And there's also a balance of like, how much time do we focus on our governance, or how much time do we focus on like building products and utility for Meebits, right?
Doing shit.
Right. I actually don't think that we have the formula perfect. I think that it's a work in progress, right? And when I say the formula, again, I'll get into a little bit more of the weeds here, right? So we have a formula that says that, the number of Meebits I own times the number of MVOX that have been delegated to me represents my voting power, right? And so that means that Kai Turner, for example, who is one of the founders of the Meebits DAO, he has 20 Meebits, right? And so that is the maximum number that we've allowed. And a ton of people have delegated MVOX to him because he pretty much got the thing started. So he's got like 1,000 votes, right? Which can kind of like just totally sway.
Tilt the scales.
Yeah, tilts the scales. And so, I believe in some level of parity, right? I don't want to disincentivize people who haven't been delegated MVOX because they're a little bit more quiet. I still want them to vote and participate. And so I'm looking for what is the right formula of the delegation from the general members versus the number of Meebits you have versus the value of owning and purchasing a membership token, a founder's token, right? For 1 ETH, which is obviously, a substantial amount of money. I think that we're still looking to figure out what is that exact right formula. Ultimately, I think what everybody's trying to do is like make this thing run and like build cool stuff and like, let's not get too focused on the government side and miss the bigger picture.
Totally. No, and I asked that I was going to, you sort of, you answered the next question, which was going to be, how is it working? Because I think we're all just trying to figure this out. And so I want to highlight this, and I want to highlight the way Meebits DAO has done it, because again, I know Kai is very thoughtful, and he didn't try and rig this system so that he would have some sort of outsized votes. He approached this really trying to think, okay, what's a way to balance all of the interests that we're bringing together. And
he actually identified there being an issue after he saw what was happening.
He's the one who was like, oh wait, I have too much power.
Yeah, this is not the way I intended it.
And I think it's great, for folks who do want to get more into this, or who are looking to launch a DAO, or who want to be thoughtful about these things. I know Kai and probably you now as well, Danny, have written quite a bit of documentation as to why you approached it the way you did. And they're all in Medium posts. If you go to the Meebits DAO Medium channel, you can see all that writing. But I did think it's worth breaking that down, because like I said, I haven't had too many DAOs on the show at this point, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you all on is because there has been a lot of thought put into how to do this, and we don't have the perfect answer yet. And I in the same way that I vacillate between optimism and pessimism around an open metaverse and whether or not we'll get there, I sort of vacillate around optimism and pessimism when it comes to DAOs and how they'll really play out.
Yeah, and I think DAO is a catch-all term that, again, is not necessarily well-defined. For example, so a DAO is an acronym, DAO, for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. We're not autonomous. There's actually nothing about the Meebits DAO that is autonomous, right?
Like it's deeply manual. I'm doing.
Yeah, everything we do is because someone actually does it. Actually, there was a period of time before I came on as general manager where it was, there wasn't any kind of hired staff. It was all volunteer, and truthfully, not a lot was going on. It kind of like got really quiet
Guilty
for a
as
while.
charged. You're looking
like,
at one of the guilty parties here. I was sort of thrust in it.
You
And
had
was
other
like,
things.
Hey, love this because other things going on. This is, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so, it takes leadership.
We've ported this term, if I'm not mistaken, from DeFi, which I called that out in the beginning. Like, I think people have a harder time wrapping their heads around non-investment style DAOs because you've got these DeFi DAOs that really can be run on smart contracts more so and are a little bit more self-governing in the sense that it's like a smart contract that has a set of rules and does its thing. And if you're just investing or whatever, like that's much easier to pull off than like we're trying to coordinate a bunch of people to like do the engineering necessary to create an API to rig a thing. Like, of course you need human involvement in that. And of course that can't be dictated by a smart contract. So we've ported a term over from DeFi that I think doesn't always fit perfectly in the NFT metaverse space.
Yeah. So it begs the question, like what makes it a DAO at all, right? Or is it what is decentralized about it? And I think that what is interesting or distinct is that I have no financial control over this organization, right? Like I make proposals. I'm not a founder even, right? I'm a general member. I don't get to vote, right? I help the steering committee to put out proposals, and then the founders are the ones who choose how we spend our money, right? They choose what my salary is. They choose what whether we invest in a project or not. We've had things voted up. We've had things voted down. And that to me is what makes this interesting and different as an organization type, right? Is that it is decentralized in that way. And then the other thing, this kind of goes back to the idea of the values that we were talking about earlier. What are the values of the open metaverse that we're building, right? Another thing that I think is really interesting and different about what we can do with DAOs is we're a global community, right? The crypto community, the NFT community, this is a global community. And so if you look at my steering committee at the Meebits DAO, which is made up of 10 people, there are 7 countries represented in that 10 people. I have United States, Canada, the UK, Switzerland, Estonia, China, and India represented among the 10 people, right? Where does that exist anywhere else in the world where you can actually have a steering committee of an organization that no one's in the same time zone and people speak multiple different languages, and yet we're all coming together with the same shared interest and passion to build the open metaverse? Really
cool. Another place where I think Meebits DAO has been innovative to success and failure, I think, to the point, and I think that's great. You can learn as much by what's not working as you can by what does work, is the MBBT token. And there's a lot that could be said about it. I've actually talked about it on this show before because I was a bit more involved in Meebits DAO and at the time when MBBT token launched. So I was somewhat involved in that. But what I love so much about it is it's fundamentally trying to get at this question of how can we allow more people to participate in ownership of Meebits in a real way. So fractionalizing ownership, but not in the sense that people are used to, which is like, I own a piece of a CryptoPunk, and if that CryptoPunk sold in its entirety, I would get a bit of a return if necessary. This is more like I own a fraction of a pool of Meebits, and I can actually then use one of those Meebits in the metaverse if I wanted to. I may have front run the punchline there a little bit, but can you explain the MBBT token, the goal, and how that fractionalized ownership piece works?
Yeah, sure. So MBBT is an ERC20 token. There's 100,000 in supply. And the underlying assets owned by the supply of 100,000 MBBT tokens is 92 Meebits. Not all floor. Many of them are floor Meebits, but then we also have 2 pigs and 2 elephants, which are more rare in our collection. And so first of all, there's kind of that arbitrage opportunity people are looking for. Like, what are the price of Meebits? What's the price of the ERC20 token, MBBT? And maybe there's a way for me to kind of make an arbitrage here. We're looking to continue to build value and utility around this collection with our partners at Seasons, who put out this collection. And one of those...
SZNS.
Yes. SZS. You got it.
SZNS.
There's 4 letters. And so one idea that we're proposing right now is that you can kind of trade it. You can trade in some amount of MBBT for one of the floor Meebits, right? And that would create additional interesting arbitrage opportunity. And then the other kind of longer term goal is, how do we use these MBBT tokens to allow people who can't necessarily afford a Meebit, but find everything that I'm saying about the open metaverse and metaverse utility and all of this stuff really, really cool? How can they still get access to a Meebit and be able to use a Meebit? So we're working with our friends at Rentable to actually create a mechanism for people to be able to rent the Meebits that are in the pool. And when you rent it, that would then put money back into the pool that could then potentially be used to buy additional Meebits or be distributed out to the MBBT holders. And it allows the people who actually are invested in this project as a holder of MBBT to rent the Meebits and be able to use them, right? And so that is really interesting and complicated. It has to do with wrapped NFTs and being able to, can you actually use a wrapped NFT in these metaverse experiences? Like, there's all these things that we're trying to work through to make that happen. But that's the ultimate vision, is about kind of expanding the access to Meebits for even people who can't necessarily afford, a 4 or 5 or 6 ETH NFT.
And MBBT trades on these decentralized exchanges where, there's liquidity pools and you can trade MBBT there, if you want to track that arbitrage opportunity or whatever it is. I know in the early days of it, it was actually trading quite overvalue at one point. And then it, of course, promptly overcorrected and then was trading under the value of the total pool of Meebits. And so there's some wild swings there. It's the wild world here. Okay, we'll kind of close here on a couple pieces, sort of broader market questions and a little bit of what I teased at the top, which is some of the social good projects you've been following and your background there. What have you noticed as being the difference now that we're in this bear market? Is there a difference to building a DAO or to building projects in bear times? Is it better? Is it worse? What have you found?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's listening to this podcast right now and still interested in NFTs despite the bear market. I mean, actually, that's been the biggest thing. Oh, yeah?
I think so.
Why?
I don't know, because the building feels more substantive. A lot of the just like hype, just the chronically getting on Twitter and being like, oh, okay, apparently I missed out on something that was going to make me a millionaire, like dope. I mean, and you have that with Goblin Town and things like that, but the pace of it feels different. And maybe it's just like selfishly the relief of me as like a podcaster who's interested in both NFTs, but also like deeper substance stuff. Like, I just couldn't keep track of the number of new projects minting. And I found that annoying. It just feels like there's more substance now. The signal to noise ratio feels better.
I get it. Yeah. I guess on my end, it just feels a little quiet. It just feels like that some of the energy got sucked out of the room, right? Like that, and I think that, that there was, I love when people are like just excited about what's going on. And when the crypto markets kind of crashed, I think everybody just realized, that the party's not going to last forever. Right? Like, yeah, that there are cycles to this. And I think that we lost a little enthusiasm there, I think, kind of among the general public, like in the like, in the war room where we're building MeeKicks and Meebits and all these other things and a merch plan. Like there's a ton that's going on, and it's like, great, now I can just focus and I don't have to like, worry and keep up with every single thing. So I think that there's actually some really great building that's going on behind the scenes, at least on our end. And I know that's going on with a lot of other projects. And I think we're going to see some really cool stuff coming out. I also think that we're in this period of time right now where everyone is kind of gearing up for NFT.NYC, and that's going to be this huge hype moment for NFTs, and that a lot of the major projects are going to be showcasing really interesting things there. And so I think it's all these things kind of at the same time, right? I think that there's some real building that's going on. I think that people are being a little quiet about what's going to happen at NFT.NYC. And I appreciate everybody who's still here and paying attention and excited.
We should shout out what y'all are doing for NFT.NYC. Do you want to tell folks?
Yes. We're not doing like a giant Ape Fest party. We'll leave that to Yuga Labs. But what we did is we built a Meebit mascot, which is the Meebot. This is the Meebits DAO. The Meebits DAO avatar NFT is this really cool robot. And we've actually like contacted the company that like creates mascots for like Universal Studios and Disney. And I was like, can you build me a Meebit mascot? And they're like, what is a Meebit? And I'm like, it's an NFT. They're like, what is an NFT? I'm like, it's a thing on the blockchain. They're like, what is the blockchain? And I was like, can you build me the mascot? They're like, yes. Okay. So we're going to have the mascot in Times Square. I hired a performer who's going to be running around. I hope everybody like gets a photo with the Meebit mascot in New York. I think it's going to be awesome.
Love it. So look out. If you're here in New York, look out for the Meebit mascot. Okay. And then just closing with your journey here, really, I think you have lived so many lives. It's so funny. We know each other reasonably well personally at this point. So I know you've lived a ton of lives, and I love how you've found NFTs. And if there's anything you've learned from the social good podcast you're doing and talking to these social good projects about what's going on in that intersection of social good and the blockchain.
Yeah. I appreciate you said I've lived many lives. Like, I think it's part of my, I'm just interested in a lot of things, right? And so I had a really hard time picking a major when I was in college, and therefore picking a career afterward. And so when I found Web3, which kind of combines technology and entertainment and media and finance all in the same space, I was like, oh, like this was designed for me. Yeah. Like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Being friends with Danny is having him be like, well, when I was like, in my 5 years in real estate, and you're like, you spent 5 years in real estate. And then like, like the next day is like, well, when I directed documentary films for a decade, and you're like, how old are you? Like, it's just like one thing after another of like, you also did this? What?
It's been a fun ride, and it continues to be a fun ride. And I don't think of work as work. I think of work as play. And I am always looking for what's going to be fun to do, and at the same time, kind of going back to your original question, like what's going to be meaningful and have a meaningful impact on the world, right? And so one of the first things that I did when I went out on my own in Web3 was to curate an art collection on known origin to raise money for refugees. And this was actually before the refugee crisis that's been created by the war in Ukraine, where we now have over 10 million refugees from that crisis alone, which is just absolutely like mind-boggling. It's hard to wrap your head around. So even before that crisis, we put out this really cool collection with 25 artists from representing every single continent, because refugees is a global issue. And I was like, let's sell some art and raise money for a good cause. And we raised money for Choose Love, which is a global nonprofit organization that helps to fund humanitarian relief for refugees. And that was really kind of how I chose to use my energy before jumping into the Meebits DAO, and hope to continue to tell these stories about amazing organizations, platforms, NFT projects, just creative executions for how NFTs and crypto can help do good in the world. I think that there's just a myriad of examples. I'm covering just only a few in my podcast. And I I also just love how so many projects choose to give some portion of the proceeds that they raise back to a charity, even if that's not the mission or the focus of the project overall. They're like, yeah, but we're making money and we want to do good. And so to me, that's an amazing ethos of this space.
Absolutely. And hey, just, selfishly for the space, it's great to have more of those stories out there to change the perception of crypto as like singularly bad or bro-y or killing the environment. So thank you for that. The podcast is Crypto Changemakers. And why don't you tell folks if they want to join the Meebits DAO or like go check out more or follow you, like give us the plug.
Yeah. So I'm at Danny Greene with an E at the end of Greene on Twitter, and please connect with me there. Join the Meebits DAO. You can pick up a membership token on OpenSea or LooksRare or anything, or specifically just mint one from our website, which is MeebitsDAO.world. And I really hope to meet you at some point.
In that mascot in NYC, in that costume. You won't be wearing it,
I will not be wearing it.
Okay.
I'm not going to be wearing it.
Farmed that job out. Well, Danny, a pleasure as always. You're the best. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure we'll have you back on in the years to come to talk about where we are in this open metaverse world and where Meebits is. And as a Meebit holder and a friend, I will be rooting for all of it.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.